Here's a quick game for you. You are about to see a sentence pop up on screen. When it does, count the number of F's you see in the sentence and then hold on to that number. Ready? Go. Okay, how many F's did you count? 2? 3? Most people will count 3, but there are actually 6 letter F's in this sentence. You may have missed the F's in the word of. If you got them all, congratulations, you were sharp. But if you only saw 3, don't worry, that's perfectly normal. Automaticity is a cognitive phenomena that occurs when we overlearn something or spend so much time on a skill that it just becomes second nature to us. We can do that thing with minimal conscious effort. Reading is just such a skill, and since it is primarily automatic for us, it's hard for us to focus on each and every letter when our minds want to just read, like we usually do. The Stroop effect, where folks struggle to say the actual color of the text instead of just reading it, is challenging for the same reason. But automaticity is an experience that extends much farther than just reading. Under the right circumstances, it can help a golfer imagine a shot, a pianist play a complex melody, and a speedrunner make setting a world record look easy. I'm Daryl, this is Psych of Play, and today we're going to take a deeper look at automaticity and how speedrunners get out of their head to get into the zone. You've probably heard that practice makes perfect, and though perfection is realistically hard to come by, practice does develop automaticity. But how much practice? Well, that depends on what skill you're trying to develop. How long does it take to learn to do something, and how long does it take to over-learn something? In 1978, psychologist Carl Binder defined overlearning as practice of a skill beyond 100% accuracy or beyond a successful performance. And in 1986, Judith Ivory added learning beyond the point needed for immediate recall. So in other words, practice until you can do it right, and then keep going until right is second nature. And this is exactly what you'd be after if you are someone like speedrunner Nicroveda, who was kind enough to chat with me and answer some questions for this video. 2 weeks ago, Nicro set the world record for the any percent run of Super Mario Odyssey. At the time of the interview, he was world number 6, and at the time of me recording this, he sits at world number 1. An impressive resume, but he only got there by spending a whopping 2,500 hours practicing. A casual run of Mario Odyssey typically takes around 13 hours, but top-level Odyssey runners can shave it down to about 1 hour and some change. So to say that Nicroveda has overlearned the skill of speedrunning this game would be an understatement. The same goes for Celeste runner Msushi, who is currently world number 3 in any percent. Msushi told me he probably has around 450 hours into Celeste, which is a comparatively much shorter run at around 30 minutes. So as you can see, the amount of time to overlearn varies, and obviously depends entirely on what one is learning. But what exactly makes automaticity work? High repetition develops it, but what is the mind actually doing when it develops that muscle memory? I read an article recently called The Pianist. The author talked about an old study performed in the 80s that found elite pianists could often play at a speed of 30 notes per second, which is much faster than human visual reaction times. Harvard psychologist Carl Lashley surmised that in order to perform a task like this, it cannot be premeditated or consciously planned out. Your fingers will only go as fast as your mind can plan the next action or read the next line of music. To play like the elite, you have to be able to hit notes in such a small window of time that you can't react to each note individually. He concluded that the ability to perform fast sequences of precise movements like this can only be explained by a single plan or mental chunk that encompasses the entire sequence. In other words, elite pianists don't think keystroke for keystroke, they think section by section. Their muscle memory clumps a series of movements together and then performs them from a single mental command. And the same goes for speedrunning. There are incredibly small windows, or frames to be precise, that require specific button inputs and combinations when the time comes in a run. And to think about each and every one of those individual frames for a half hour or more would be mentally exhausting and wildly inefficient. When I asked Msushi if he focused on each and every button input or just zoned out and went on autopilot in a run, he said, Oftentimes when I think input by input, I might jumble and confuse myself, or just end up being flat out slow. Usually I like to think in terms of the game mechanics, not inputs. For example, in Celeste, I wouldn't consider a hard trick to be a Konami code type sequence. I'd think that I need to do a hyperdash into a bunny hop and things of that sort. So instead of thinking in terms of individual steps to an action, Msushi just thinks of the verb, and that's a textbook sign of automaticity, chunking a set of practiced complex actions into a single mental command. Driving is a complex process. You have to understand traffic, how the car works, where you're going, how to react to signs, and so on. But rarely do any of us think about these things. Typically we just think, time to drive, and then 10 minutes and 3 Kesha songs later, we're magically there. We even read in chunks. If you couldn't find the F's in that sentence earlier, it was because your mind automatically processes the entire word at once and then moves on to the next. The letters were in there, sure, but those are like the button inputs and notes, which we usually don't think about individually when something is overlearned. So automaticity is something you'd want to develop if you'd like to excel in any given skill. There is a lot to be gained from allowing yourself to just perform the action, because oftentimes it will eliminate errors that you might make if you were consciously planning each movement. It lets you relax and execute your job well without overthinking it. Although it sounds counterintuitive, it seems that letting yourself get out of the way of your performance or even zoning out can have its benefits. When I asked Nicroveda if his mind ever wandered during a run, he said, "It definitely depends. I tend to read chat a lot and it takes my mind off the run. I kind of let my muscle memory take me away and it works quite often. There have been many times where I've gotten a best split or a gold and was surprised because I felt I was barely paying attention. I've noticed that not 100% focusing on what I'm doing in the game has benefited me many times." So all you need to do to be an incredible speedrunner is develop automaticity from hours of practice, and then you can set records in your sleep, right? Well, not exactly. There is a caveat to the muscle memory, and the getting out of your way is a double-edged sword. Have you ever gotten up from the couch, walked to your bedroom, turned on the light, and then froze because you completely forgot what you came in here for? Or have you ever opened up a piece of candy and then absent-mindedly thrown the candy away and put the wrapper in your mouth? If so, rest assured, you're not alone, and there is a name for this. In 1979, JT Reason ran a series of surveys and found that a lot of people experience these absent-minded motor errors. Driving to the wrong place, putting shaving cream on a toothbrush, turning on the light as you leave a room, the list goes on. He called these actions not as planned, or ANAPs for short. Reason pointed out that all these activities are highly practiced and routine. Without conscious double checking, we don't always catch the obvious errors. And this is the snake in the grass of automaticity. It lets you do incredible things without much thought, and it even eliminates errors in precise movements. But if left unchecked, it can make you look silly by doing the right thing in the wrong way. When asked if he ever forgets portions of his runs, Nicro said, "It randomly hits me like a truck, where I'll forget what button I'm pressing, or for a split second I make myself believe that the jump button is something else, and I freak out for a second. I don't know what causes it, but it has happened before." When entering or exiting a loading zone in Odyssey, a vast majority of the time you buffer a spin pound roll where you want to go after the transition screen goes away. And because the transition always looks the same, if I'm not really paying attention, I'll forget where I am in the level and go the wrong way. So the takeaway here is that automaticity in its purest sense works on a sliding scale. An activity like your heart beating is 100% automatic with completely zero conscious effort. Speedrunning a game is semi-automatic. Although there are portions that you can get through on muscle memory alone, you'll need to bring yourself back down to earth regularly. Msushi made this clear when I asked if his mind ever wandered during a run. He said, "It's definitely a subconscious kind of thing, however, focus is still extremely important. I usually find my runs are better when my full attention is on the game and not my chat or my appetite or whatever could be a possible distraction." So, although you can relax and let your performance happen, staying dialed in at least to some degree will help you minimize the amount of ANAPs. And I think that's just as true for speedrunning as it is for any performance, so we all may have something to take away from the studies I mentioned here. To wrap up, I'd like to mention something unexpected that can blossom from automaticity. There is a scholarly argument that when something can be done automatically with little conscious effort, this can breed creativity. When things are invented or discovered, most often it's not preconceived or premeditated. Usually new ideas are just stumbled upon. You might have heard someone say, "It just came to me." Since automaticity is an unconscious process that often springs into action on its own, it may lend itself to creative thought. In other words, when your mind can perform complex actions subconsciously, it may also subconsciously realize new ways that those actions can be used. It may see new possibilities that you wouldn't consider if you were consciously thinking about it on a surface level. And I think that's why the speedrunning community can constantly find new ways to cut time and develop new strategies. Sports psychologist Jay Brunza once said of Tiger Woods that his genius was not how far he hit the ball, but instead his creativity in the short game. The footage is a bit dated, but I'll leave you with these words from Tiger, where he describes what each shot is like. If you're like me, you'll find that the gap between elite athletic performance and elite esport performance may be smaller than people think.
I tend to have these blackout moments where I don't remember. I know I was there, but I don't remember actually performing the golf shot. I get so entrenched on the moment, I guess my subconscious might take over. I don't know what the whole terminology is, but there are many putts or many shots where I don't remember hitting. I remember seeing the ball flight. I remember preparing for the shot, pulling the club out of the bag, and once I'm behind the ball, I'm walking in the shot, I don't remember until I see the ball leave. It's a weird thing.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. I am thrilled that I was finally able to make this episode. I've been planning it for a long time now, but I knew I needed to do at least some level of my own research to connect automaticity and speedrunning. So a massive shout out goes to Nicroveda and Msushi. Thank you both a ton for helping me make this happen. Be sure to go check out their streams because their skill at these games is nothing short of tremendous and incredibly fun to watch. Thank you again for being here. Be sure to share this with some friends and subscribe. Until next time.